Today our speaker is, excuse me, Edie Jacobs. Edie was born in Germany.
Yes.
Yes, and came to the United States when she was still a schoolgirl, and
A wee nipper.
wee nipper. And she's going to talk to us today about her exciting life when she was a member of Beitar, which was the youth movement of the Oregon prior to 1948.
I have a special surprise for you, okay? I talked our cantor of Beth Shalom into opening this event, okay? Cantor Weber, thank you. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you for asking, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you.
So nothing serious, nothing too heavy. Edie and I were discussing how we might open this event, and she was thinking that Hine Matov, Umana, here we are all sitting together, would be a good way to start out, and I agree. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Now, since we are going to be speaking about Israel, right? We thought it would be appropriate for us to sing the national anthem of Israel, Hatikva. So if you would all please rise. The flag is right over here. Kolot baleva panima afesh Yehudi Ovia Uzate Mizra Adima Ailet Zion Sophia Olav Tikvatenu Atigava Bateshnat Al Chaim Liot Am Choshi Be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim Liot Am Chofshi Be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim. Thank you. You can all be seated. Hatikva means the hope, literally. The tikva, the hope. And that's what it's about, is the hope for the land of Israel, for the state of Israel, and for a place for all the people to be. Earlier today, I shared a copy of the original words to Hatikva with Edie that she's going to take a look at later, because what we sing now is actually, now that there is a state of Israel, the words are actually different, because it's not just a hope, it's a reality. do you want to start speaking now, or should I add one more, do one more song?
I'd love one more.
Okay. I did bring one more, so. Almost like I planned on it. Some of you may know this one, Eli, Eli. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, ha'chol v'hayam, rishrush shel ha'mayim, v'rak השמיים תפילת האדם החול וחיים רשרוש של המים ורק השמיים תפילת never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of man, the sand and the sea, the rush of the water, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of man. Thank you, and now, with no further ado, Edie Jacobs.
My mother told me at a very young age, when I was in school in Germany, in the town of Schweinfurt, we had our teacher decided to put on a play, and my mother wanted me to be part of that play, and she asked me to audition and perform, and I said, Ma, I don't want to be a performer on like that. I don't want to be an actress. She said, I insist. So I forced myself. Well, nothing's changed. I didn't become an actress. I told her I wanted to become a writer. She was not impressed with that. I don't think my mother read more than one book in her entire life. But that was my thing, and I followed that also, that career. Now here's I'm really honored to be your speaker today. I'm very happy to be here, actually. Nervous as I am. Prior to the establishment of the Jewish state of Israel, I was an underground fighter for Beitar, a Zionist movement for the Irgun. My group leader was Moshe Arens, who later became the defense minister of Israel. I asked my teacher at the YMCA next door if she can see me as a fighter in Beitar, the Irgun. She said no. She must have forgotten I'm a few years older. Actually, I was a terrific shot. There is much I cannot tell you about my life in Beitar, and the reason that I'm speaking at all is because Israel is in grave danger. Can you all hear me? Okay. There is insufficient involvement with Israel from American Jews, especially the Jewish youth. It seems that their education or their desire for education stops with their bar mitzvah. Of course, I understand it's impossible for them to grasp that 6 million of our people were murdered during the Holocaust. In 1941, my immediate family, namely my mother, father, brother, and I were all able to immigrate to the United States. Unfortunately, about 80 of my family didn't make it. They were victims of the Holocaust. Although I was very young at the time, I had already established my unwavering allegiance to Palestine. My father had traced the Schloss family from our exodus from Spain to Germany during the Inquisition in the 1400s, so we were living for a long, long time in Germany. My family settled in Oppach. As a child, I believed everyone in Oppach was my cousin. We were that numerous, and I would go from home to pick up goodies like we have outside. I was especially close to my older cousins, Gustav and Herbert. We would often roam through the countryside during our weekly visits to Oppach in spring and summer. My grandfather, Abraham Schloss, had moved to the industrial town of Schweinfurt. You will see it over there. I may put Schweinfurt there. And had elevated himself from peddler to the owner of the town's largest department store. Life was good for the Jews in Germany. This changed after World War I and the defeat of the Kaiser. Hitler was voted into office as the head of Germany by the German people because there was a terrible, money was just worthless after World War I, and the people didn't know what to do, so they voted Hitler into office. I want to tell you that I'm especially proud to be the granddaughter of Abraham Schloss. He's always been my direction in which I should be traveling. It's because of his courage and foresight that I'm alive today. There had been a meeting of the heads of the Jewish community. Of course, I wasn't there. I was a wee nipper, but my mother told it to me. A Jewish judge spoke and advised the Jews to have patience. We are accepted by the German people, he said to the crowd, and they will defend their Jewish citizens. Hitler will also become to accept Jewish citizens as soon as the economy improves. We know about the economy, don't we? Yeah. Our rabbi gave his support to the judge, but a week later, the judge and his family left for an extended visit to Palestine. Need I tell you, they never came back? And the rabbi, accompanied by his wife and 6 children, were visiting his family in England on a permanent basis. I think you understand what I'm talking about? Okay. They never returned. My grandfather tried to encourage the citizens of our town to leave. Very few believed that better days were not coming, and many simply did not have the possibility of visas. They had no relatives abroad. My papa thought it was foolish too. Nevertheless, he got in touch with our American cousins, whom we had never met, and asked them for visas. Jewish life continued to deteriorate. We couldn't even buy food locally. Storefronts advertised Juden verboten. Does anybody here not know what the word verboten means? Okay. Dogs had higher status. They were allowed into the stores. Mama with her red hair looked like an Aryan, so we went to other towns to do our purchasing for food. I was no longer able to attend public school. All public places were closed to Jews. Our Jewish community of about 1,000 quickly hired a teacher and established a one-room classroom for students. I was the youngest in the class. Leaving school after class became a dangerous challenge. We were often harassed and beaten by gangs of the Hitler Youth. Do you know anything about the Hitler Youth? Do any of you not know about the Hitler Youth? Okay. Well, we have a lot of people here who are not Jewish. We were often harassed and beaten by gangs of these Hitler Youth. They would shout, "Go back to Palestine, where you dirty Jews belong." I had never heard of Palestine, and no one had ever called me a dirty Jew. But I decided I would go to Palestine as soon as I grew up so I could live as a proud Jew. At dawn on November 9th, 1938, all Jewish men were arrested before dawn. A French Jew had killed a consulate member in Paris and this gave Hitler the excuse to arrest all Jewish men. Later that day, Jewish homes were ransacked and smashed to smithereens. I, at that point, was hidden with Christian neighbors. Most men were released a week later, but men like my teacher were sent to concentration camps because they were leaders of the Jewish community. Our education ceased. We had no one to teach us. Jewish properties were confiscated, and all Jewish residents were moved to a certain area in town, which came to be known as the ghetto. My father continued in denial. Maybe he did it because he didn't want me really to think. Maybe he did it so I wouldn't know. But of course I knew. But he also continued to build a relationship with our American cousins. They finally, reluctantly agreed to give us visas because America was still going through a depression. Papa persisted with weekly letters, and the visas came with the help of our cousin Herbert Lehman. He was at that time the governor of New York. I saw my cousins Gustav and Herbert one more time before we left for the land of the free. They had no visas. Life will get better, I lied, and we will soon be together again. They had no visas, and I saw the sadness in their eyes. They knew, and I knew, that we were all lying. But we never in a million years imagined mass murder. Who could think of such a thing? After 1 year, my father, who had never had a sick day in his life, died of leukemia. I looked in the mirror that day. I couldn't believe that I appeared the same. I felt numb. I remember going down to the local candy store and telling the owners I wanted to read the Sunday funnies. I never cried because my grief was simply beyond tears. As soon as the war ended, Mama began to look for our family. She came home one night and said, "They are all dead, gassed, shot, burned, dead, dead, dead." She then collapsed and took to her bed, and for several months was unable to function. I did housework, and neighbors brought us food and solace. As soon as I became aware that there was an underground Zionist movement called Beitar, I joined. Beitar was the youth movement of the militant Irgun. I was about 14, 15 years old. I began to train as a soldier on weekends. I also packed guns that were headed for Palestine. My mother had no idea about my activities. She was very busy working in a factory, and she just didn't pay attention. She couldn't. She was just too upset. I no longer believed in anything but the need for a Jewish state in Palestine. No one in the world had wanted Jews. Even President Roosevelt turned away ships and sent them back to Germany. We had to feel safe somewhere. I took part in my first public demonstration with Beitar in 1947. Dov Grunner. Does anybody here know about Dov Grunner? No. Well, I got a lot of material over there about Dov Grunner. He was a true hero. A member of Irgun had been arrested in an Irgun operation on a British police station in Ramat Gan with 3 Irgun comrades, Yechiel Dresner, Mordechai Salkali, and Eliezer Kashani. I'm mentioning their names besides Dov Grunner because I don't want these people forgotten. Britain had the mandate over Palestine at the time, and the 4 men were condemned to be hanged. Leaders of Beitar made the arrangement for a group of about 35 members to meet directly across from a building on Central Park and 5th Avenue. The office of the British consulate was housed on the 8th floor. We made our way on foot to the 8th floor. I was very young at the time. Couldn't make that trip today. And waited in the stairway while one designated member entered the office. She made believe she felt faint, and as the secretary ran to help her, we entered and explained we were peacefully demonstrating against illegal British rule in Palestine and the conviction and trial of the 4 men. In the meantime, Beitar leaders called New York police and all the important newspapers. We wanted an advertisement free. By the time we finished and made our way down to the street amidst flashing lights and questions from the press, we silently piled into the Black Marias. You know what Marias? Does any of you not know what Black Marias are? No. Huh? They take you to jail. There are wagons that take you to jail. That were waiting to have us booked at the police station. At the police station, there were more reporters waiting, and we began to sing the Hatikva. As we exited, no one was ever charged. Dov Gruner and his 3 comrades were hung in Akko prison on April 19th, 1947. They were hung in Akko. It's a town in Israel. Yeah, well, they were arrested in Israel. They were true heroes and paved the way for the establishment of the Jewish state in 1948. The remnants of Jews who survived finally had a homeland. I left for Israel immediately after I graduated from high school, 8 months later. In 1957, I went back to Germany to look for my cousins. I simply could not believe they were gone. I hired a translator, who, by the way, did not charge me anything, to look into the excellent archives of the Nazis. My cousin and their parents, with many other Jews, had been taken on a forced march to an open field. They were ordered to dig graves, take their clothes off, and fold them neatly, and then shot to death. I'm proud to be an American citizen. We arrived in the U.S. poor, but by the time I was 24, I had established my own business. I still had the dream of being a writer. I didn't have that opportunity. I was busy with business and opened a second store. And I retired in 1995, and I applied to Skidmore College for acceptance in a writer's program. I was one of the lucky 14 chosen, and I too finally made it to Sleepaway College. That's it, guys. I sold, in my first store, I specialized in girdles, brassieres, and lingerie, bathing suits. In the second, I was the first one in New York to open a small store, in a family neighborhood with large sizes. It also was a tremendous success. And I was in that business till I retired in, when was it, in 1955, I think I retired. Yeah. What? Riverdale. Yeah. I don't know how, before I did that, I was a peddler. I would go into Harlem because I knew that as a peddler, on my day off as an assistant buyer for one of the main department stores in New York, it was Hearn's department store, and I saw after a while that it was quite dangerous for me to do this. So I hired one of the guys that hung out, and he made a living and I made a living. And I worked on Saturdays and Sundays selling in Harlem. From there, I advanced myself to opening this. One day, I don't know how I had the time. I was working 7 days a week. But somehow I found the time, and I went up to, I found the time, and I went up to Riverdale. I didn't know anything about Riverdale. And I saw a small empty store. And I said, that's for me. And I told my mother, I want to go to get myself that store. I can't go by myself. I'm 24 years old. No one's going to give me that store. She said, I want you to marry someone who makes a living. I don't want you doing that. I said, Ma, did that help you? And she said, no. So I convinced her to go with me. So I went to the office in the Empire State Building of the landlord. And I told him, I went into the office. He knew right away that I was the one to talk to for some reason. He was smoking a cigar, and he put it down momentarily, and I said, "What's the rent?" And he said, I think it was $100 a month. I said, "I can't afford that." He said, "How about $1,000 and 1 month free?" I said, "I think I can swing that." And that's how it began. Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation, but I'm a little bit confused about the continuity of your timeline. I know your family left Germany, then they came to America. You actually volunteered through the Irgun.
No, I volunteered for Beitar. I was too young for the Irgun.
But that was all in America. Physically, you
Yeah.
didn't get to Palestine until after it was.
Yeah, and I got to Palestine 8 months after the end of the war. The war only lasted
So
a
were
few
you
days.
involved with the organization there as well?
Absolutely.
But you're not going to tell us.
No,
anything
I
about
cannot
those
tell you
connections.
about my life completely.
Oh, because I thought that's what you were
Yeah.
going to be talking about.
Yes.
Well, we belong to Habonim in upstate New York, and I think we had one of the first sit-ins with
One of the
Great-
first?
sit-ins downtown
Yeah.
Rochester, New York, with signs that said "Great Britain has unleashed terror on the Jews," and we gathered. Nobody bothered us, but we walked with our signs, and we also took little stick-ems and stuck them wherever we could do. We were teenagers. No, we didn't get into trouble, but we were very much aware of what was going on.
Well, my
and tried to
mother
help.
didn't know what I was doing. She would never have approved of what I was doing.
Well, I went with my big brother, so my mother
Well,
didn't
you were
care.
lucky.
I went with my brother, so yeah, I was just a teenager.
Yes.
You mentioned a sibling. I don't remember if it was a
I had a
brother.
younger brother.
Was he involved at all?
My brother became very ill because of what happened during that war, okay? He was never mentally stable afterwards.
Which war?
Well, I only had one brother.
Which war?
World War II.
In Germany? In Germany.
Yeah, I came during the war. England was already at war when we crossed on the SS Hamburg to come to the United States. Yes.
How long were you in Israel, and why did you come back, is my question. Although you have family here, but why? Tell us.
Good for you for asking. I was hoping nobody would ask me that question. I lived in Israel several times. I lived there for a year. Then I felt that I was very young to be on my own.
How old were you then?
I was about 17 and a half, 18, and I decided also that a kibbutz was not the future for me. Besides, I didn't speak Hebrew very well. So I came back and later married a man who had been in a concentration camp, and he was a survivor, and just what I had been looking for, somebody who was a born survivor. He was a born survivor. And we went back to Israel, but it was impossible to make a living there.
Was it always?
Well, we didn't speak the language, you know? Yes. Anybody else? Question? Yes, I have a daughter. She became also a leader, but not in this. She became a leader in let's put it this way. She didn't follow my way of life. Okay. She also became a leader, but she's not a conservative. I'm a conservative. She's to the left. She lives here, right.
She's a radical.
She's a radical. You got it. Thank you for that word. I needed that word. But anyway, she is who she is. Okay? And that's about it. By the way, I put some pictures up here. This is a picture of my cousins that were murdered and me, whom I absolutely adored and think of all the time. This is a book that shows our history in Schweinfurt. And if you want to know more, if you want to know, ask me questions. Go ahead, you want to ask me a question.
Edie, when the Germans started putting the Jews in concentration camps, what was your family doing? Where were they at the time?
They were trying not to get into a concentration camp.
Well, I can understand that, but were they living in hiding somewhere?
No. the Nazis came around and arrested you for whatever reason. Nobody asked questions. We were scared to death. Okay, thank God we had visas. All right, we left during the war, and I remember passing. My father made believe he didn't know what was going on. I think he made believe, you know. But I remember we passed the British man of war on the sea, on the high seas, and the soldiers were standing, the sailors were like this. I knew, but my father thought that I was too young to know anything, but I knew everything. How could you miss it? I didn't have to be smart.
The terror was everywhere.
Of course, I was beaten up all the time when I left school, of course.
How old were you, Edie, when you came to the
9 years old.
She was little.
Yeah. Yes.
I may have missed it, but did your grandfather die before?
My grandfather, it's very interesting that you should ask that. On the way to Bremerhaven, where we left from. Anybody not know where Bremerhaven is? It's the seaport that gets you out of Germany.
Which part of Germany?
Near Hamburg. And my grandfather said, after I know you're safe, I'm going to die. 4 days later, after my uncle was saved and my family was saved, he died. He turned his body to the wall and never ate or drank another thing, and thus he died.
How old was he?
He was, I think, 68.
He was holding on for you.
That's right. He wanted to know we were safe, okay? Then finished. Any other questions? By the way, if anybody wants to know anything about these pictures I put up, be my guest. Yes? Yeah, what is it?
Get our guest first, and then I'll.
No, there's somebody behind you who raised his hand.
Just a Schweinfurt was the mulberry plant.
That's correct.
Germans had, right?
That's correct. This was a very important town to the Nazis, because this was what?
You got out before the bombings. I'm sure there were many civilians that were killed during those bombings.
I couldn't care less,
No,
to
I'm
be
just
honest.
saying, you're very
What?
lucky you got out. That's all I'm saying.
I shouldn't say that, because I am still in touch with the same friends I had at the age of 4. Okay, and they came to the United States to visit me, and I visited them in Schweinfurt.
Jewish? Are they Jewish?
No, if you were Jewish, you were either out or dead. There was no in between. What? What is it?
I'm always curious about language. You came at the age of 9. I had a friend in Baltimore who came when she was 16. During the war, she was taken in by an American Jewish family. She claims she doesn't understand any German.
Everyone's
I mean,
different.
do you?
Well,
I'm just wondering how easy was it for you to learn English, and do you still understand German?
You know, when we came here, I'll just tell you an anecdote, and then I'll tell you what happened. When we came here, my mother said to me, after 3 days, go and mail this letter downstairs. She saw a red box. In Germany, the red boxes meant you put your mail in. Here it means the fire department is coming. So the kids in the neighborhood who knew by this time that I didn't speak a word of English, they helped me to climb up. I was too short to pull the lever. So I pulled the lever. Right away I knew I did something terrible. And the fire department came, and I ran across the street, and I was beside myself. But I also came back. I was not a coward. And I tried to explain to them in German, since I didn't speak one word of English, that I had made a mistake. So this woman came over and she spoke Jewish. So she made herself understood to them that I was a refugee. She told them in English that I'm a refugee, I can't speak English. And by this time I was crying. They lifted me up, took me to the apartment, and they told my mother, who spoke English, that what had happened, that we were here 3 or 4 days. And he said, don't worry, we won't give you any kind of summons. Welcome to America, this is our present to you. And and then my mother translated, the more he said, the more I cried. But later on in life, one of the first, when I became a writer, and I'm a master writer, I'm a graduate of Skidmore College, I wrote a story about the fire department because they've always been my favorite people. Yeah, go ahead.
I have to ask, I just wonder what you thought then and what you think now in regard to the mayor and the rabbi telling everyone to stay put and then leaving. It's just appalling.
It wasn't the mayor, it was a judge.
Oh, a judge
Right.
and then the rabbi. Yeah, tell us what you, what.
I think they are responsible for the death of many people.
But it sounds so cowardly.
Well, who says rabbis can't be cowardly? My mother's motto was, never trust a rabbi after that. And I learned to be very judgmental about the people that I trust, okay? Yes.
Are you concerned about the education of children knowing your story? Are there enough educators that are telling them?
No, but in fact, I spoke to, I don't know if probably yesterday, not yesterday, but I spoke to one of the women who's in charge of the very good school here. And I said, I would like to speak to children about this situation who are over bar mitzvah age. I don't want a very young child to know this story because it's harrowing, and I know it. And basically, I got a good sense of humor, but not about this. Yes, sir. I lived in Inwood, where all the German Jews lived. Inwood. It's the uppermost part. It's the uppermost northern part of New York City. It's right after Washington Heights. All right, if you don't know New York, you don't know it.
New York State, not New York City.
No, New York City. Yeah. Yeah, it's the end of Manhattan. Yeah. Yeah. You didn't have to know English there. You could speak German. But in 3 months, I had learned, I was perfect in English. This was no problem for me. Any other questions? Chavarim. You know what chavarim means? My Christian friends are sitting here, around here. It means friends. Yes.
I'm going to
No,
ask
I
you.
want to. She's next
Judy,
because you've
okay.
already talked quite a bit, and for
Edie,
which I thank you.
When you were in Israel and you were part of Irgun, is that what it's
The
called?
Irgun.
Irgun. What did you do as a? Did you work for them?
No, I lived on a kibbutz. At that time, the war was over. I came 8 months after the war ended.
Oh,
Yeah, but I was in Beitar. I was too young for the Irgun.
okay.
By the way, I was a terrific shot. I packed guns for Israel. I was busy, like I am now. Okay. Yes.
So basically what I hear you saying is there's secret stuff that you cannot share.
That is correct.
Okay.
They were terrorists.
Yeah, she is.
I was a patriot. I was not a terrorist. They were the terrorists. Are you Jewish? Huh? Are you sure? Oh, I'm glad to hear it. I have friends here who are not Jewish. They wouldn't ask me that question. What?
In 47, we raised money for guns.
You were packing guns?
Raising money. He was raising money.
Oh.
for guns.
Oh, thank you. I was one of the people who packed them. Yeah.
You know, my husband flew munitions into Israel.
What year? What year?
48?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Through Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, well, you can be
Through
very
South
proud of
America
him.
and Czechoslovakia.
You can be very proud of him. We have a lot of heroes, but we also are not right now, I feel we're not really involved sufficiently in Jewish life because we're in trouble. We're in terrible, terrible trouble. All right, nice to talk to you. If you want to know anything about this, ask me.